Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. So, if you're new to our show, check us out. All right, we're on LinkedIn, we're on Twitter, we're on YouTube, and on major podcasting platforms. And the reason I do what I do is because I love chatting with fascinating people in tech. All right. And the guests, the brilliant guests on the show, they're influencers, they're practitioners, they're experts, they're leaders, both business, technology side, they're entrepreneurs. All right. So I think I'm in good spot to bring brilliant minds to the attention of my audience because, hey, the tech news, the tech trends, all the involvement that we're reading about, that we're taking part on, it's still overwhelming to me. All right. I'm subscribed to hundreds of newsletters, I think, rats of publications, and yet to make sense of all these interesting things happening in tech world, I bring in practitioners like Eric Nguyen today. Eric, how are you?
I'm good. It's my pleasure. How are you, Irene?
I'm doing fabulous because great. Guess what? My day is when I talk to smart people, I learn a bit, and when I share it with the audience out there. So, Eric, all right, I know you have practical experience. I know you are the expert in what I would call automation. Okay, it's all from business process to AI to enterprise software. Okay, this happy angle to me, right? When people are skillful and knowledgeable enough. So why don't we dive into something that, let's say, someone who is relatively new to the domain? Okay, because there are lots of people who trying to get a hold of all the information and knowledge. But to me, enterprise automation, the area you have experience on, and now we're blending in understanding of AI. What's the state of the business there now, Eric?
Thank you, Irene. I think before we jump into the conversation, is quite broad. I just like to make a step back that for the audience, I'm thinking of the audience. I would say it, don't get yourself overwhelmed with the amount of information because at this day and age, we talk about um, knowledge generated by human as well as information generated by things like ChatGPT or generative AI. So tons of it. So we can easily get lost and lose our invaluable time and effort. So for the audience, I would say when you think about the topic we're going to discuss today, always reflect with your own experience, with your own context, and see it in a very, like I said, application in the next 3 months or even less than 3 months. Can I pick up something in a month, 4 weeks, or 12 weeks time? So if you have that in mind, you can easily filter out any broad stroke initiative and just focus on the part that you say it is valuable, because you are, at the end of the day, the master of the journey that you're gonna make. So I hope we're gonna
Excellent.
proceed in that
It's an
direction.
excellent start. Absolutely. So, Eric, in terms of enterprise automation, right? I know we started with business process management discipline some years ago. Okay. And right now we talk about intelligent automation, even with AI insights, right? With all the capabilities that applied AI is offering to the business and technology. So, in your career, right, how did you come about, this knowledge? And maybe if you could share, some of the experiences that you've had along the way.
Certainly, thank you, Irene. I'll be very quick. Maybe I would start from the end first with enterprise automation, my practical hands-on approach. So I've been through a couple of major enterprise and organization in Australia, in both the private and public sector. We talk about the level of complexity. It was just like, say, you have in the impact it is into to the millions of people. So the function behind it is quite evolved over the time. So we talk about vendors, we talk about third party, we talk about a group of independent business function work together behind the scene. So for me, the sense of enterprise into automation, it just serves one purpose. It is for the everyday business operation. So you can talk about strategy all day long. I've learned quickly that strategy is like fashion. You change it every year if you can afford it, or you're willing to hear a new idea. But from strategy to everyday business outcome, that is where enterprise automation play the part along. So it's just all about, hey, we have huge demand here, highly complicated technology stack behind the scene, and in terms of, like, say, requirement business rules, it's overly complicated, and we have limited time, we have limited resource, but we have enormous customer base here. How do we solve that problem? So enterprise automation is like a glue, in the way I see it, in terms of operation. So that was where I picked up my understanding, my experience in terms of not just technology, in terms of process management, which you just mentioned, in terms of AI, how AI actually, and data, how we bring those elements into the big picture without break the everyday operation. It is like you have a team, a sport team. You cannot say you're gonna just have let's say basketball. You cannot just say, okay, I will have 6 players. They are all Michael Jordan or LeBron. You can't. It's impossible. So there is certain back and forth thinking in order to make it into function as well for today, but also for the future. Certain gap for growth in the future. So that is the my perspective was built on top of global customer service in telecom industry. That it was way beyond just a service desk. It would include things like, say, I work in the space of, let's say, contract management, in the space of unified telecom, where you talk about, I have soft phone, I have a virtual call center, but beyond those technical stack, how do I make it work every day when things goes wrong? I've learned the lesson of enterprise automation from those moments when things goes wrong, and when you don't have the money, but you have literally you have 2 seconds to come up with the answer. So it was like a journey of I think over 20 years to learn, to experience, and to say, okay, how we bring technology, people, the people we actually we work with, how do we influence them? Because at this day and age, you work with people that you don't see them, or you don't have the authority to ask them to do. So you have to collaborate or convince or influence. How do you work with people? And then last but not least, it is about understanding the process that you have. The process is where you can actually scale up the impact. So that's my my journey.
I have background in business process, in automation, actually. And just to remind the audience out there, right, let's talk a little bit about cost optimization, because sometimes automation technology or initiatives, they're not seen as revenue driving projects. We're going to talk about that. But let's talk about, saving and maybe budgeting the right way. Because again, automation, we know it can optimize process. It can cut costs to a reason. But I need to know your opinion, Eric. Where do you see organizations take the most, I would say, you have the most benefits of thinking about automation initiative, or if they have one in progress, kind of, driving it to the fruitful results?
Definitely, I think it is a valid question, and it should be at the back of anyone's in the space of automation, not just the leader, but had to go all the way to the staff or the team member of the project. I use I use this very simple kind of like framework to illustrate my point about value. I would say for automation, there are 2 aspects that you can look into for business value. One, the obvious one, is about productivity, about saving, cost saving. So you do things over and over again to the point where the technology will live up cut the cost of labor, reduce the amount of error of rework, reduce the waste, reduce the turnaround time. So everything is about that highly efficient, highly productivity. But it is just only one aspect of business value. It could be sometimes you literally you don't see the appealing out of it. I'll share with you the second tips, how you actually can turn things around and see it from a fresh angle. Just think about this. This is like a framework I use. I call it for any operation or any business. Basically, you have three things happens. You have the input and you have the outcome. In between, you call it a process or whatever we call or I used to use the term a black box, because what is happening inside you don't see it. So the cost saving, the productivity, the efficiency conversation we talk about, it all happen within that black box. So if you see the other end, after you have, if you improve your efficiency to the point that you can't see any way out, then I would recommend you to look at from the other end, where we talk about the outcome. Outcome is just basically the all the let's say feature or offer that your product or your service promise and then deliver to the customer. However, it would just only at a point in time. I've learned from marketing this term is called perceived value. The outcome doesn't give the value that the audience or the customer take over the time. For example, your laptop, when you buy it, you say, okay, this is cutting edge, it's great. But after years, after you use it, your perceived value decline. Why? Because certain things happen. It is like human. It's very much like a human aspect, emotion, feeling, and also new need. So you see the outcome. There's a gap, growing gap between the outcome and the actual perceived value. And the customer, they only remember the perceived value. So when things like, say, if you use a service for Netflix, for example, you will forget every single great moment that you are in front of the screen. You enjoy the movie late night. You only remember the moment that number one, let's say Netflix, they overcharge you by mistake, by accident, or two, the disruption of like quality, for example. So it is human, this anchor into your memory. So that perceived value play huge roles in customer service. We talk about, like say, customer advocacy, blah, 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 but it's all come back to that kind of black box where you improve productivity, efficiency, but very little effort to look after the actual outcome and make it in a way that it match with the perceived value. So automation for me also have the real potential there, and actually I put it in practice as well.
We didn't talk about technology at all right? And a lot of my guests, a lot of experts out there, they're really technology agnostic. Okay, so in a way, it doesn't much matter, okay, which vendor you go after, if you're a Microsoft shop or maybe you're a AWS shop or so on and so forth. So what's your take on it? I mean, yeah, I probably know the answer, but let's go for it.
I think that's a great question in terms of you have problem, but you don't know which one you can you can focus on. Excuse me. And then you have so many answer from vendors, from the community of practice. However, I think the missing part is the context, the business context. Like say 2 years ago, things so different from now. And in the next 6 months, for example, or 12 months, the topic of today's conversation about practical application of AI in enterprise automation, it reminds me of the point in time we are at right now. It is where we talk about the economics downturn, we talk about the budget pressure, and also the expectation of value for money, literally now. So I from that angle, I would say anything with a point solution or any vision, grand vision, where things gonna just work, it will be very difficult to put into practice. So in my opinion, back to your question, it is all about back to the basic. If you are in, like say, this situation, practical advice, let's go back to the basic with what you already have right now, with the people, with the process you have. And back to the basic, it could be, okay, let's improve the productivity, the throughput, or can we deploy, can we look into and be creative and look into the part where, okay, I have the outcome. Can I do some value added service with automation, with AI, and with people to actually, number one, generate more revenue. Number two, improve that kind of like value proposition of the product. So it will justify the investment and the effort and the level of risk. Let me just share with one quick example of the value added work with automation or intelligent automation. It was a while ago, back in the day when managed cloud like hosting was still relatively new. So I work in a team where they will have one team member to basically go through various account for the client and just basically check for the current status of their account on the cloud, and then mitigate if there was something unusual around, let's say, the usage around, let's say, thing that should not be there in terms of, like, say, account, the number of account, like, say, was over than what we provide, supposed to manage for the client. That was okay, but the thing was, for client, they because they only pay for the basic like package, and then I've seen it. I thought, okay, it literally took them, like, say, one person to spend about almost, like, say, 6 hours of his or her 8 hours a day, like I said, every day, so just go through, do that kind of like repetitive work. But it is not, like, say, but they have to check in a number of spots and then collate it into a report before making certain action, and even like communicate with the client. So I asked the product owner, hey, why don't you do something else to improve that? Why you have to waste almost like one of your team members on this task? And he said, no, that was his or her job. And then number two, there were limitations in the platform that we use. It was back in the day when things still, like, say, very limited in terms of functions. And number three, because the client, yes, they can have premium service, but the current number of customer that we have, they haven't moved on into that premium space. So he said, okay, my hand is tied. I cannot spend any investment. I cannot replace this person with someone else. And I said, okay, let me try. So I talked to my GM, just basically present the fact, the evidence, and get his permission to say, okay, let's do a trial. So the trial is very simple. We will automate that kind of like process, but then we added a couple of feature, like, say, forecasting, as well as hygiene, kind of like account activity. Bring it into one new automation. We say, okay, this is like, let's try it. So this is slightly better than the basic, but not full scale premium package. We then say, okay, let's run it. And surprisingly, we not just save the hours that we spend. Now we only run, literally, you don't run, you don't take 6 hours for the bot to run. This was only about less than an hour, where we have the report, we have the action ready for the team to follow up with the customer and vendors. But then the key part, the value added part here is the customer now, they know in advance that their account, the bill, gonna be this much, compared to in the past. because everything is just basic, so the team tend to leave it until the end of the month, where we have the billing cycle to reconcile all the figure and send to the client. So now literally we can give them the projection by the end of the day, or we can leave it for the week, so they know in advance to say, oh, it looks like we overspend on on a cloud account. So the feedback was overwhelmed. The customer, they said, okay, cool. It was great. Where do we go from here? We advised them, okay, we can move you into the premium space where you will have more control of your spending. And they were very happy. So at that point in time, I realized that the value added work, it doesn't come at a cost of the current labor or the extra investment significant. It was just about you connect the dot and you actually see it from a fresh angle and listen. It is not about you. The thing I think I've seen it now that, like, say, whether we talk about automation, we talk about data, we talk about like AI. If you think that you are the hero of the day, then you are likely not being able to scale up the impact and really drive something meaningful to the business and to the user. You have to be humble. Keep that. Be humble and be open. Be honest. If you think that, okay, I'm the hero of the day, I've solved this problem. No.
It feels good though. It does feel good. Don't you agree? Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
so. Yes, feel good, but don't be a hero.
When you implementing the solution, right, you're affecting people who work with this particular application or system or in this department, all right? And I always bring, the empathy element to what we do, right, as practitioners, but at the same time, the buy-in. What I find is that, you have to have stakeholders, all people who will be affected by change, all right? They have to not only agree with whatever comes their way, because they will be resistant. We're humans, okay? We don't like many changes, by the way, none of us, all right? But if we get the buy-in from the organization, from top to bottom, bottom to up, all right, people more motivated, right? People willing to help, people really thinking what you said, right, creatively, and solving problems where, again, there are not going to be additional investments or any of huge spending going on. So in your opinion, what's the best approach, sort of like kind of getting this buy-in? It's not easy, right? It's influencing, it's sort of, right, making it all making sense. So what's your experience?
My experience in terms of it's just my personal approach. Buying, I think it is the ultimate goal, but I like to break it into 3 stages. The very first stage was around, okay, the idea. Where to from the idea? Okay, I have a great idea. Then I want it to be something that is tangible. So there are 3 couple of stages I think of. First, idea to concept. The buy-in there was just relatively around the end user, around, like, say, technical, around, like, say, existing process, where we can follow the process or we can bend it, bend the rules, not violate it, bend the rules, and be transparent around, let's say, the reason why. So we have the concept. Then from concept to the next stage, where you actually have to manage up, manage around, and manage down, where you actually socialize the concept. At that point in time, I will not say, okay, I have a business use case. I don't say the word use case. I tend to focus only around the concept. Okay, I have a concept here, and this is the value that we're going to add in terms of, like, say, productivity, in terms of efficiency, and then the value added part of that concept. So this is not like I've learned over the time that when we talk about use case, we addicted to that. We think, oh, this use case. If you put it in this way, what is the use case of a knife? a knife is a concept. What is the business use case of a knife? Do we think that it is feasible to even now think, oh yeah, a knife can cut, so what? Oh, it can be in the hand of the surgery or butcher, or even like yourself at home. Are these the real business use case we talk about? If you think about, let's say, the concept, yep, a knife is a concept, then the application is different from just the concept. So I tend to walk away from that use case conversation, because when you talk about use case, people will say, what is next? That they did not realize that, okay, the concept and the application, there are multiple paths. So you don't just jump in ahead. Okay, so we have idea to concept to that kind of socialization of the not just the feedback, but actually it is the support and the advocacy, and people start to chip in their opinions that kind of like influence into the concept. So that's how I see we're going to start to build up that buy-in and release those tension. We must be able to give our couple of branch out a chance to tough up, to be resilient enough in the real world. And after that socialization, where we gather feedback, consultation, go back and forth, then the next stage it is around where we pitch it into like to the board, to the executive. So the buy-in for me, it was all the way back from idea to concept. So we need to build that kind of like we gather the data, we harvest the insight, and we build up that kind of like ecosystem from people and business impact along the way. We don't just go to jump into the pitch deck. Okay, here's my vision. This is a problem we try to solve. This is a technology we bring in. Please sign the check. I think the buy-in the end, it was how you actually you build up from the ground. You build that up, so the board will basically check, okay, have you done enough check through various layer or hierarchy? If it is convincing and they see that is, I think is timing is critical, especially like this current point in time where every single dollar gonna be scrutinized. So if you can say, okay, this is just not just the burning question from the front staff, but also from the client and how it related to the actual revenue stream. I always say to my client as well as my teams, is about automation, whether we talk about just the pure RPA, robotic process automation, or we talk about intelligent automation, or AI plus advanced analytics and automation. Ultimately, it is about two simple things for executive. Does it save money? Does it make money? You save money. You remember the framework I mentioned: productivity, efficiency, save money. Can it make money? It's about the part around the perceived value after you have the outcome. So you make money there, you save money here. So now it basically drives that conversation to the point where, is it practical? Is it timely? And what is the risk? Especially with the introduction of AI into enterprise, I would say at scale, right? We see it right now. The pressure is on. A lot of big promise around, okay, we're going to invest huge amount of money into AI. But the real question is, how do we make money out of it? How do we save money out of it? So in order to have, okay, if you have a great idea, excellent, but try to link it with these two goals.
And have these answers ready, right? Because you will be asked, right? And you will be liable for demonstrating those results. Wow, excellent. I'm always asking my guests a few takeaways, okay, that we want to remember this talk by, because we did talk about the aspiration, the idea, right, the technology, but also very practical considerations when it comes to investment and demonstrating results. Maybe a few points you want to share in conclusion.
Okay, so few point, very quick point. As I mentioned, when you see operation as something very much like, say, a simple, just like say, draw a diagram, a simple diagram, and build your idea, your concept, your key point around it. We talk about input, we talk about outcome, we talk about the black box of operation and the perceived value at the end next to the outcome. So if you have multiple point of attack there and map it with time, resource, and also business impact or business priorities. So all of a sudden you have, at least you have some roadmap. And then from that point, if now we say, okay, I want to know how I can bring AI into this space, but in a practical application. I want the answer now. Put it that way. I can say, okay, easy. We can think about a couple of like principles before we jump into those kind of like experiment. Put it as an experiment. Number one, back to the basic. It is not about, okay, what you see as good. It is about, can you quickly pick up pain point or potential from let's say client's perspective. If it's small enough in terms of, let's say, even time boxing, 2 weeks. Can I do something in 2 weeks with what I have right now? That is the first principle, back to the basic. And then second is about time box. Last but not least, it is about risk management, as what you want to do with what the consequence might be in the future or liability. You have to take it seriously in terms of, like, say, data breach, in terms of legal issue, in terms of even, like, say, the buy-in, because you might have a brilliant idea, but it may be too early. At some point in the organization, the answer will be no. Or even, like, say, you start and you make it almost to the end. The answer is still no, we don't want it. So be ready for that aspect in terms of risk management. Now to the second part of, let's say, okay, walk away. Can I get some idea and I can try? I think a couple of part that you can try. Let's say if it is about customer service, you will talk about, you think about, let's say, I have tons of email coming to the mailbox from a company. Normally those conversations will highly unlikely having, like, say, those important information or sensitive information. Normally we're just like very generic. Let's try small. Use automation to just extract, let's say, the content part, and then use available AI tools where you can do the data extraction out of it. Just to think about it as, like, say, a 2-week experiment to build up the capability and understanding. And then if it worth it, hardening it. So basically, it's like in customer service, the turnaround, the response time is critical to the customer as well as the multiple internal teams. So use that combination of, hey, I build some very simple automation component, handle email. I use AI component to analyze and extract certain information, map it, and bring it to humans, so that and then make it into, like, some sort of like time, based on the time, motion in time. If you can say, okay, yeah, it works in customer service, great. So that's a concept, one concept in customer service. The other one is in contract management. You can start to sign up with a couple of, you can look around and see there are a couple of vendors where they have invested in the space of contract management capabilities for years. So picked it up and then try to, again, just 2 weeks, sign up for a free account and go for something that is not that sensitive in terms of, like, contract management around, like, say, SOA, for example. Just you make use of whatever they have there and extract the insight. So the executive, they see something that they can play with, as well as the team. And in the middle, with IT operation, for example, in the space of security. At the moment, they have overloaded with the complexity, with the number of tools, with the demand, but there's a lack of automation and AI element that can help them to optimize it. So maybe it is a good time to say, okay, hey, you guys have tons of log that you have to go through. You have the tool, great. Teach us to do it in 2 weeks' time to help you to look after the log, look after those kind of routine check that I mentioned earlier with my team at the managed cloud services. So the same things here. It's just about, hey, coming in, do it for every single tool that they have there. I've learned that for complex organization, now it could be up to 40 different tools in their cybersecurity SIEM. And remember, it's 24/7. So in a way, it is exactly the same business operation like a customer service center. You run 24/7. You have SOA, you have priority 1, priority 2 incident, you have requests. So why don't you have the same set of technology and process to uplift the quality? So these are the 3 kind of like idea that I hope the audience can even like pick and try.
Thank you, Eric, so very much. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Irene.